Okay, here comes part two. We were at Dr. Timothy Leary's 8-circuit model of human consciousness. And for sake of time, I don't want to go all into that because that brings up a whole bunch of other things. But it's something to be aware of, to know that it exists, and that it's a very, very good model. And regardless of what you think of Dr. Timothy Leary, you need to take in mind and consideration that the man got his doctorates out of Harvard. Okay, so there. Also, I'm bringing all this up because to get you got to start with where you're at, and where are you most aware of? You are most aware, more than likely, of your body, okay, in one of the senses, whether it be hearing or visual or kinesthetics. You know, you're more used to touch. Still, it is based on an operating afu, as we say in the fifth way, or a physical body. And that is composed and ordered through the genetic structure. And what is that about? How can we get to that? How can we speak that language? How can we not only write to it consciously, but read from it consciously and get the words and write and comprehend what those words are trying to tell us? Well, as I was saying, I want to give reference again to some stuff. I'm limited to 10 minutes here, so I got to give it to you rapid fire, all right? And we can hash out the details later. But Meru Foundation, M-E-R-U, all right? Also Stan Tenen. Now, I just bring that up because also you want to look at Dan Winter. I've been posting some of Dan's stuff and his work on DNA. It is excellent. But you're wanting to know how to start, and if you're having trouble with some of the mathematics involved, I can definitely see where you would have trouble kind of following Dan, because, you know, Dan, he's brilliant. I mean, so much so it's almost a deterrent, but nonetheless, his work is brilliant, and if you can grok it, at least that's the goal, okay? We want to get you to be able to watch, you know, 20 minutes of Dan Winter and not feel like you're having to break out into a sweat and burn 500 calories just to comprehend the guy. But anyway, the DNA can be spoken to, and we have evidence to believe, and not only thousands of years of tradition to back this up, but the Hebrew. To start out with, you can start out with the Hebrew, the Greek, or the Arabic. But because the Hebrew is so much older and is based on fire letters, I mean, it is the shape of fire, and what more primordial archetype do we need, more symbolic of consciousness, of light, than a flame? And if you notice that the shape of Hebrew letters they're called fire letters for, you know, it's not just poetic license. Now, those are all based on some very fundamental geometry that we'll go into in the Kabbalah later on. But you're wanting to know how to talk to the consciousness and the best way to do that and how to start. I would suggest being looking at and reading the fifth way material. You're obviously attracted to the Western way. To use Hebrew and the Kabbalah and the Tree of Life. Okay, it's simply negative space and then 1 through 10. And the cool thing about the Hebrew is that as you're learning the letters, you're learning the numbers. As in Rome and in Latin alphabet, they used letters to denote numeration or numbers, placeholders. You know, they used I and V and X and L and D and M. You know, just a handful of letters. Well, in the Hebrew, all of them are, and it's based on the 10. It's base 10 number expression. And because they didn't have Arabic numerals like we do today, they had to use the same. Well, they didn't have to, but it was chosen to use the same symbols for A equals 1, B equals 2, so on and so forth until you get to number 10, and then it rolls over. 10, instead of the next one being 11, it is 20. And then 20 is 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 200, 300, 400. now, what's cool with that, and some of the things, is out of that comes the mysticism of gematria, where the same words that equal the same number have a hidden correspondence, and that can get cool and groovy. But the most important thing is that we have overwhelming amount of evidence to suggest that the human unconscious also corresponds with this language. Okay, the numbers that show up in dreams time and time again, words that show up in dreams time and time again, they correlate to the Hebrew language. Alright, these old Merkaba mystics, pre-Amos, Isaiah, Ezekiel, Moshe, these guys knew what they were doing. Alright, they were we call them prophets, and some of their work got into what we call the Old Testament. But I mean, there's a reason for that. And yes, they were, the Old Testament, that's 2 eons ago. That's 4,000 years ago plus. But it's still pertinent because of the nature of that language. So my suggestion to you, if you want to talk and begin to reprogramming safely, okay, and this is a whole wide thing, it's going to take years and years and years, but what you can see progress in quickly is learn your ABCs, 1, 2, 3s all over again using Hebrew this time. Alright, getting a copy of Crowley 777 and just perusing that, but sticking to the correspondences. There's more information than you'll probably ever need in that one, but just a good Kabbalistic primer. Okay, I can't express that enough. So Meru Foundation, Stan Tenen, Dan Winter, and of course all of the resources at the fifthwaymysteryschool.org. And with that, I will bid you all adieu, and remember to love yourselves and love one another. Okay, let's do this thing, guys. Peace. Agape.